Now, next year will mark the 40th anniversary of the Falklands War. And to mark the occasion, Lord Ashcroft, Michael Ashcroft, of course, has written a book looking at the lives of those awarded medals for valour and gallantry during the conflict. And he joins me now. Morning, Michael.
Good morning to you.
Lovely to have you with us. Apart from the anniversary coming up, I suppose the thing that really struck me when I knew that you were coming on and thinking about the book is we know so much in a way about the First World War and the Second World War, and less so about the Falklands War. Do you think actually it sort of requires a bit of a passage of time to then go back and look at these stories, afresh?
Well, yes. I mean, many of us later in life lived through the Falklands War, and obviously memories from World War II. Majority of those, very few left who can give live stories of World War II. But for example, tonight is the launch of Falklands War Heroes, and 16 of those that participated and got gallantry awards will be there this evening. And I've been able to get their first-hand experience of what it was like. And so the Falklands is something that is, like Iraq and Afghanistan will be in the years to come, is still fresh, that many of the population have lived through it.
And it's so important to get those first-hand accounts. What I suppose it's difficult probably to sum up, but what stands out for you as the most extraordinary story that you've uncovered?
Well, there's a few. Obviously, there were 2 Victoria Crosses and I have one of those in the collection, and I've recorded it of Sergeant Mackay. But 3 others come to mind. Captain Keith Mills, for example, was 22 when he faced the biggest crisis of his life, how to defend South Georgia, April 1982, from a much larger enemy force. And the day before, Argentina had invaded the Falklands, so he knew this was for real. And his total force consisted of just 22 Royal Marines. And as the enemy approached by ship and by air, Mills organised his men superbly, inflicting losses on the invaders. And during a fierce firefight, he remained calm, organised. Once the situation was hopeless, he surrendered, having given the enemy a bloody nose and having not lost a single man. And for his gallantry that day, he was later awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. And then there was a senior naval nurse, June Hendy, was no less brave for her work in the hospital ship SS Uganda. She treated up to 160 casualties a day, including enemy servicemen. And she told me how she was 3 times reduced to tears by the sheer bravery of the badly wounded. And the man who was unbelievably cheerful as he had his leg amputated without an anaesthetic due to a medical condition. And then we had people like squadron leader Jeff Glover, the only British pilot to be taken as a prisoner of war by the Argentines after his Harrier was shot down over West Falkland, ejected from his aircraft on his very first combat mission, so on and so forth. So these tales are now written up, and it's based on my own medal collection of all those that I've written about, nearly 40 stories. I have within my collection all those medals, which one day will be on public display.
Yeah, I was just going to finally ask you about that. It's an enormous collection of medals you've got, including the world's largest collection of Victorian crosses. Why? How did that start? And why did you set about sort of amassing such an enormous collection of medals for bravery?
Well, briefly, I was born in 1946. And many kids, sort of at the age of 10 onwards, would say to their dad, "What did you do during the war, Dad?" Meaning the World War II. And my father was a young officer who was in the first landing craft that landed on Sword Beach on D-Day at 7:20 something in the morning. And he explained to me that as young officers the night before, they were briefed to expect 75% casualties, dead or wounded. He talked about getting onto the American ship, a good breakfast, fry up by the Americans, into the landing craft, very rough waters, men sick, ramp going down, men shot as they came onto the beach, his running zigzagged up the beach. And I became a schoolboy geek on Normandy, and I found one Victoria Cross that was awarded that day, read about it, was so fascinated that I then read many other stories as a schoolboy, and I hope one day to be able to own a VC. And when eventually I had enough funds, I purchased the first VC. And as I reread the story, holding the medal, a frisson went through me. And I realized that this wasn't the end of this chapter, just owning one. It was going to be the start. And today, of the approximately 1,500 issued, I have 210 Victoria Crosses, all of which are on public display at the Imperial War Museum. And anybody that is interested in gallantry of our armed forces, I'd recommend a visit to the Imperial War Museum.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I've been down there myself and seen them. It's an extraordinary collection. Each story attached to it is absolutely incredible. Michael Ashcroft, Lord Ashcroft, thanks so much for joining us and describing some of those incredible stories from the Falklands War, which is told in his book, Falklands War Heroes.